Salve, salve, Dirty Birds! E aí, fã de NFL? E aí, torcedor da Atlanta Falcons? Bem-vindos a mais um vídeo muito especial. Conseguimos mais um convidado ilustre aqui. Para vocês que não conhecem, o Miles Garret é repórter lá na Fox de Atlanta, cobre os Falcons, acompanha muito o training camp e hoje a gente vai conversar um pouquinho com ele para a gente poder ver sobre as expectativas para essa temporada chegando. Miles, thanks again for accepting the invite, man. Really appreciate your presence over here. And let's talk football. Let's talk a little bit about the Falcons. But before, please tell us a little bit about yourself, what you do, and these kind of things for the Brazilian community.
Absolutely, yeah. So my name is Miles Garret. I'm a reporter at Fox 5 here in Atlanta. We're the official station for all things Atlanta Falcons. We're partners with the team, so we run a lot of their shows. We run 3 of them, actually: Early Birds, Dirty Bird Report, and Rise Up Tonight. So those are 3 specific shows that we do with the Falcons, in addition to our daily newscasts and whatnot. So I'm a big part of that product. I go to a lot of Falcons games, or I'm here, doing highlights, interviewing some of the players at practice, at training camp, whole 9 yards. So we're very close to the team and work very tightly with them.
Okay. Really nice, thank you. And so let's begin. I won't talk a little too much about the draft or the free agency and anything, because that was a long time ago. But I just wanted your insight on your general thoughts. Did you think that Falcons had a good offseason in this topic? Did you think that the team is trending to the right direction and this kind of things?
Absolutely. I think they had a very good offseason. The best offseason they've had in a very long time, in fact. This is a team that's been hamstrung by salary cap issues for at least the last 4 to 5 years, just because of the contracts they've had with Matt Ryan, Julio Jones, a plethora of some other players that have been on the books basically until this offseason. So that money finally came off the books, and you're able to sort of build a team that you've been wanting to build for a long time. You add an all-pro safety in Jesse Bates. You add a Hall of Famer in Calais Campbell. You have a great draft class. You bring in arguably the best player in Bijan Robinson, the running back, who 20 years ago probably would have been the number 1 overall pick just because of the value of the position. You get Kyle Pitts back to full strength, sort of the forgotten guy in this offense because of last year. Marcus Mariota, of course, had his struggles, especially getting the ball to Kyle Pitts. And then the defense has been completely reorganized. You have Grady Jarrett paired up with Campbell and David Onyemata. You've got AJ Terrell now with hopefully Jeff Okudah when he comes back from the injury he sustained in training camp, hopefully early in the season. Of course, Jesse Bates back there with Richie Grant, who is an ascending talent. Jalen Hawkins, another guy who's great for depth there in the secondary. And then you got the linebackers, who you've got a plethora of new talent there too. Caden Ellis from New Orleans, Troy Anderson taking that second step after kind of turning it on at the end of last year. You bring back Lorenzo Carter out of the University of Georgia. And you also get Bud Dupree, another veteran in this league. So you've got a lot of depth now on the defense that you haven't really had before. And just a bunch of new talent, young talent on the offense to add to it.
Yeah, I wanted to start by the defense. We had a change in the defense coordinator. Dumpy's retired. He was a little bit in doubt if he was going to retire or if he's going to continue this season with the team. And then we got Ryan Nielsen, the Saints defensive coordinator / assistant head coach. And what do you think it will change the most from the past, let's say, couple seasons, 2 seasons with Arthur Smith in this 3rd year of the regime on the defense? I know the team is really bad on sack production the past few years, but do you think the mentality, the aggressiveness, or it's going to be a defense that will force more turnovers? How do you see the evolution of this defense for the upcoming season?
I think the biggest thing will be the defensive line, as I mentioned, with the additions of Calais Campbell and David Onyemata. It's definitely been the position group that has made the biggest impression so far in training camp. Players have said it, coaches have said it. You see it out there on the field. You're seeing them get penetration in the trenches there. That penetration that they really haven't had before, because really the last few seasons, all you've seen is Grady Jarrett on that defensive line. He hasn't really had anyone to go along with him to kind of take that threat away. So I think that has been the biggest surprise so far. It could be the biggest difference maker as to what will make this defense better. And I think we've seen it a little bit in the preseason already with these 3 games. The defensive line, especially against Miami, albeit with backups, they were able to get that penetration and go through sort of bull rush and bully a little bit a very good Dolphins team. That's a playoff team last year. And they had joint practices throughout the week, and they were getting pressure on Tua Tagovailoa during those joint practices. So I think that will be certainly a position group to watch, and a position group that I think will be the difference maker on the defense.
Yeah, absolutely. I to be honest, the most 2 questionable signings for me were the Saints one. I don't know. For someone that watched the Saints at least twice a year against the Falcons, I don't know about Onyemata and Ellis. I think they will contribute absolutely, but I don't know. We'll see about that. But absolutely, the defense is going to be renovated, and hopefully, it will be not at the bottom 5 of the NFL in this year. And so changing to the offense, we got Bijan in this draft, and we already had 2 skill players in the past few drafts with Drake London and Kyle Pitts. We will have finally Desmond Ridder as the starter for the season. Do you think that he's ready? How you see the evolution from the past training camp to the 23 training camp? Do you have any concerns about him? Of course, we didn't got to see him too much in the preseason. Only 1 drive against the Bengals, but I don't know. Please tell me about your thoughts on the Desmond Ridder.
Yeah, I really do think he's going to be the X factor for this offense, because, as you said, it's been a revamped offense. Last season, you didn't have Kyle Pitts for a majority of the year due to his knee injury. Drake London really wasn't a factor in this offense until Desmond became the quarterback. They kind of built some chemistry. Those 2 were roommates last year. He kind of came in together as rookies, sort of built in chemistry together. And you saw what Drake could do with some consistency at the tail end of the year. You add that in with a talent like Bijan Robinson, who won't just be a running back. This is a guy that will be split out wide, catching a lot of passes. I think that's something that's very forgotten about when it comes to how this Falcons offense operates. I think you will see just players all over the field. You're going to see Jonnu Smith now brought back in. This is a guy who had his best season of his career while he was with Tennessee playing under Arthur Smith's scheme. You add him into debatably the most physically gifted tight end in the NFL when it comes to Kyle Pitts. Could really be a wide receiver. And I think you're going to see him split out wide quite a bit. You add another big body like Mac Hollins. These are all guys who just were not there with Desmond last year. So I think that's something that earns him the benefit of the doubt, because these are just a whole bunch of offensive weapons that he was not working with his last 4 games as a rookie. And I really think you can't really judge a player on just 4 games, especially when that team is missing so many of their best players or just don't even have them yet compared to this year. So I think this team will be as successful as Desmond will be. I don't think they need Desmond to be a superstar quarterback in order to win a lot of games. I think they need him to be a very good game manager, which I think he can be and has shown he can be. He needs to just basically ensure the run game operates as smoothly as it can. And he said it himself. It's really hard to miss these targets that he has now. It's really hard to miss a guy like Kyle Pitts, who's 6'4", can run like a deer. Same thing with Drake London, 6'3", 6'4". Bijan Robinson, one of the most talented running backs we've seen come out in a long time. So just so many bodies, so much talent now on this offense that has not existed before, that I think Desmond will be able to flourish in.
Yeah, absolutely. This is the general thought for us. When we were at the 2022 season, once we saw that Mariota wasn't going to be the answer for this team in short or long term, the thing that we most, I think Arthur Smith had a great resume so far. The most thing that I critique him is for not put Desmond, 3 or 4 games earlier, maybe after that Carolina game on Thursday night that Mariota was really bad, but we are in a new season now. And about the underrated, because at Brazil, Falcons is a team that is going a lot under the radar, and people, I don't know, because of a smaller fan base or anything, but people doesn't pay too much attention for the Falcons. So 2 things that I wanted to get your opinion on. what was the most underrated signing or addition throughout free agency or draft that's going to surprise people in this season? And also, what aspect of the game, defense or offense, doesn't matter, do you think that people are underrating the most that is also going to surprise them?
Sure. I think there's a few just because there were so many. As far as underrated is concerned, I like to point out Mac Hollins. I think Mac is a guy that can really end up being quite a red zone threat for this offense. It seems like he's become a target or favorite rather of Desmond and Arthur Smith when it comes to sort of those goal line situations, because Kyle Pitts is going to get double teamed. They're going to be looking at Bijan Robinson coming out of there. Drake London, just because of how big he is another dude who will be kind of covered pretty well. Yeah. So that leaves another guy who could potentially be open. Matt Collins is another big guy. I mean, this dude is a physical specimen, just like the other two. So I think he's a guy that could potentially flourish. He's had a great offseason, kind of getting his body right. He's mentioned that quite a bit. And on the defensive side, hopefully he comes back from this injury. But when it happened and early on, I thought the Jeff Okudah signing was huge. Based on what he was doing. AJ has needed some help, kind of that number 2 defensive back for a long time. And at the early points of training camp, it was looking like Jeff Okudah was finding that Jeff Okudah of college that warranted him being
the prospect from Ohio. Yeah,
exactly. Warranted him being a top 5 picked ahead of AJ Terrell in that very same draft. So if he gets back to full strength and shows what he was showing early in training camp, that might be the biggest signing on the defensive front outside of, the big ones like Calais Campbell and Jesse Bates and the ones that we spoke about as far as, the linebackers and defensive line is concerned.
Yeah, absolutely. And just to wrap it up here, do you think that it's a fair expectation for the fans or for the NFL community in general that the Falcons will make the playoffs this year? Do you think that, I know the division is very equal. It's not the best division in the NFL right now. We know that a lot of rookies or unproven quarterbacks at the positions on both on 4 teams. So I don't know. The team was 7-10 the past few seasons with, in my opinion, a way worse roster in all the areas, all the sectors. So I don't see why this team can have a positive record this year. And I don't know about winning the division. Maybe we can go win the wild card, but do you think it's fair for her to expect to go to the playoffs? Maybe a divisional game? I don't know.
100%. I mean, I think winning this division is very attainable for this team right now. Like, as of this point, I would say the Falcons are the favorite in this division just because of where everyone's at. I think the Panthers are very early in their rebuild. I don't think they have the team around Bryce Young yet to where they can start really competing for that. I do like what they've been doing. I think Frank Reich was a good hire for them at head coach. You bring in guys like Adam Thielen, some veterans. You bring in Bryce Young, who is arguably the best quarterback in this draft class. But I do think that they're missing some pieces, especially on the offensive line. I think that's a group that the Falcons could potentially feast on this Sunday just because of who they've got on the defensive line. I think the Buccaneers are kind of directionless right now. You don't really know who your quarterback is. Their head coach, Todd Bowles, has sort of shown what he can do, I think, as a head coach in this league. I think he's an excellent defensive coordinator, but I think as a head coach, he's shown his limitations, especially last year when you had a team that was a potential Super Bowl favorite with Tom Brady and all these other guys coming back from that roster that won it a couple years ago. And then the Saints, who another team that I think is a little bit directionless right now. They're sort of on the echelon of they have talent, but you don't know if they're good enough to really make that leap. I am not a believer in Dennis Allen whatsoever as a head coach.
Me neither.
I think he's shown what he can do as a head coach in this league. Again, another guy who I think is a fine coordinator, just isn't quite what he needs to be as a head coach. Derek Carr, I like Derek Carr. I think he's a good quarterback, but I think Derek Carr is a great quarterback if he's got a good team around him. Yeah. And I don't think he has that. Michael Thomas has not shown consistency to stay healthy. Alvin Kamara, you don't know what his deal is coming off suspension. So I think there's some pieces there that are promising for the Saints, but I would take the Falcons roster ahead of them and the coaching ahead of them right now. So I think that the Falcons roster has shown me enough that they should be the favorites to win the NFC South this season.
Yeah, okay. Just one final question that I have here. I see a lot of people questioning also Arthur Smith as a play caller and also as a manager, especially in the clock management. He had a couple issues in the last season. Do you think that he needs to improve, or do you think he didn't have the necessary personnel to do what he wanted to do and these kind of things?
I think it was the personnel. I mean, just look at the roster he's had the last 2 seasons. It's been hamstrung by salary cap. I mean, you go into a national perspective of what kind of players Arthur Smith had to work with these first 2 years. These are rosters that sort of league-wide analysts projected them to win 2 to 3 games, and he's strung out 7 wins out of both of those rosters and had them in every single game last season, outside of maybe the Bengals loss. Yeah. They were in every game basically until that final drive. So I think it's a true testament to what Arthur Smith was able to do with the talent that he had on his roster, who weren't necessarily guys that he would have wanted. I mean, these are guys from the previous regime that he had to really make work. Especially maybe that first year with Matt Ryan and, an aging Matt Ryan at that point. Yeah.
Problems with Cobre Ridley that year.
Yeah. Ridley, who was, playing in 2 to 3 games that season, wasn't quite reliable at that point. Olamide Zaccheaus. He didn't have those big just look at the receiving core from 2021 to today. It's guys who are my height to now guys who are 6'5".
Huge. Yeah.
So, I mean, just from a sheer size perspective, you have that, and then the running backs. Obviously, we know the talent that Bijan Robinson is. So I think I'm extremely excited to see what Arthur Smith can do with these guys, because he finally just has his guys that he can run his offense the way he wants to run it out of.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, I think that was it that I had over here. Once again, thank you very much for accepting the invite. I think this will be huge content for the Brazilian community. The Brazilian fans are expanding a lot over the years. The community here is growing like crazy. So once again, thank you for your time, for your insights. You, more than anyone, will know what is happening and what will happen to the Falcons throughout the season. And that's it. I'm only going to finish here in Portuguese, but once again, thank you very much. Então, é isso, pessoal. Fechamos o vídeo aqui com o Miles. Espero que vocês possam compartilhar aí para chegar no máximo de pessoas possível. Acho que esse conteúdo é muito bacana para a NFL no Brasil. Mostra como a nossa comunidade está crescendo e a gente consegue trazer pessoas importantes aí para contribuir. Once again, Miles, thank you very much. Nos vemos no próximo episódio, pessoal. Um abraço e até mais.